If you are over 70, I want you to listen very carefully to the next 60 seconds, because what I am about to tell you might completely change the way you see your own health. Most people your age spend their time worried about their cholesterol numbers, their blood pressure reading, their A1C, the results that print out on a lab slip after a routine appointment, and look, those numbers matter. I am not going to pretend they do not, but here is what almost nobody tells you, and I mean almost nobody, not your doctor, not your pharmacist, not the morning news health segment. The numbers on that lab report are not the truest measure of how well you are aging. There is a set of signs, real, physical, functional, observable signs. And if you have them, if your body is doing these 7 things, then you are aging better than the vast majority of people your age. You may not even know it. You may be walking around right now underestimating your own health. Or maybe you are someone who has been quietly worried, comparing yourself to someone else, wondering why you feel the way you feel, and wondering whether that feeling is normal or a warning. Either way, this video is for you. I am Dr. William, and after more than 2 decades of working with adults in their 70s, 82nd, and even their 90s, I have seen what real, meaningful aging well actually looks like, not on paper, in real life, in the way people move, the way they think, the way they wake up in the morning and get through their day. And what I have seen in my practice has taught me that the signs that matter most are not always the ones we measure in a clinic. So today I am going to walk you through 7 signs that show you are aging better than most people after 70. Some of these will make you feel genuinely relieved, some will surprise you. And at least one of them, I can almost guarantee, you have never heard framed this way before. Stay with me, because we are starting with the one that people underestimate the most, and it has everything to do with what happens the moment you stand up and start walking. Here is the uncomfortable truth about how we talk about aging. In this country, we have built an entire system around managing disease, and somewhere along the way, we forgot to talk about what it looks like when things are actually going well. I have sat across from patients who were told at 74 or 78 or 81 that there was nothing more to be done, that this was just what getting older felt like, that they should manage their expectations. And in my experience, that is one of the most harmful things you can say to an older adult, because it strips away the one thing that matters most at any age. The belief that your choices still matter, that your body is still responding, that you still have influence over how your story goes. The science tells a very different story. Research on longevity and healthy aging, and this is coming from institutions like the Mayo Clinic, Harvard Medical School, and the National Institute on Aging, consistently shows that the people who age the best are not simply lucky. They are doing specific things. Their bodies show specific signs. And when those signs are present, they predict something much more important than what any single lab number can tell you. They predict independence. They predict quality of life. They predict what your next 5, 10, 15 years actually look like. So what I want to do today is give you a clear picture of those signs, and I want you, as you listen, to honestly ask yourself, do I have this? Is my body doing this? Because if the answer is yes, even to 3 or 4 of these, then you are doing better than you think. Before I get into the first sign, I want to ask you something. Drop your age in the comments below right now. Just your age, whether you are 64 or 71 or 83 or watching this with your parent who is 89. I want to know who is watching. And if you find this kind of senior-specific, doctor-led health information useful, if this is the kind of content you wish your own doctor had time to sit down and explain to you, then subscribe, because this is exactly what I make every single week. All right, let us get into it. Sign number 1. This one surprises people every single time I bring it up. But I want you to hear me on this, because the science behind it is remarkable. Your walking speed and your balance are 2 of the strongest predictors of longevity in older adults that researchers have ever found. Not cholesterol, not even blood pressure, walking speed. A study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association followed thousands of adults over 65 and found that how fast a person walks is one of the most accurate predictors of how long they will live and how independently they will function in the years ahead. Now, I am not talking about running a marathon. I am not talking about speed walking on a treadmill. I am talking about a normal, comfortable walking pace when you go from the car to the grocery store, when you walk down the hallway of your home, when you cross the street before the light changes. If you can do that without hesitating, without shuffling, without holding on to something, without feeling like you might tip, that is a meaningful sign. Here is why. Walking requires an extraordinary level of coordination between your brain, your nervous system, your muscles, your inner ear, and your vision, all working together in real time. When any one of those systems starts to decline significantly, your walking changes, your stride shortens, your pace slows, you start taking shorter steps. You start holding your arms wider for balance. These changes happen gradually, and most people never notice them until they take a fall. But if your walking still looks relatively normal, if you move with some confidence and steadiness, that tells me something very specific about what is happening inside your body. It tells me your brain is still communicating efficiently with your muscles. It tells me your balance system is holding. It tells me your leg strength has not deteriorated to the point where basic movement is a challenge. In plain terms, a steady walk is your brain and body still working as a team, and that matters enormously after 70. What about balance specifically? Try this. Not right now if you are watching on the couch, but at some point today, stand near a wall for safety and try to balance on one leg for 10 seconds. Just 10 seconds. Research from the European Journal of Preventive Cardiology found that adults who cannot balance on one leg for 10 seconds have a significantly higher risk of dying within the next decade compared to those who can. That is how powerful balance is as a health indicator. If you pass that test, you are doing better than you think. Now, let me be very clear about something before I go any further. Forgetting where you put your glasses does not mean your brain is failing. I want to start there because I have had patients come in absolutely convinced that something was wrong with them because they could not remember a name or a word the way they used to. And the anxiety that comes with that, the fear of dementia, the fear of losing yourself can itself do real damage to your brain function. Here is what the science actually says. There is a normal, well-documented process called age-associated memory change, and it is not the same as cognitive decline. As we get older, the speed at which we retrieve information slows down slightly. The processing speed, how fast the brain moves from one thought to another, takes a small dip after around age 60 or 65. That is normal. What is not normal is losing the content of memories, forgetting that you had a conversation entirely, getting lost in familiar surroundings, repeating the same question 3 times in 1 hour. So here is the sign I am looking for. Do you still remember the things that matter? Can you recall the names of people you love, the appointments you made, the medications you are supposed to take and when? Can you follow a new recipe, learn a new phone feature, remember the plot of the book you are reading? Can you manage your finances, your calendar, your household decisions without feeling completely overwhelmed or confused? If yes, even if it takes you a half second longer than it used to, that is a sign of preserved cognitive function. And after age 70, that is something to genuinely feel good about. What supports this? One of the most powerful factors I see in patients who maintain sharp memory well into their 80s is something researchers call cognitive reserve. Think of it like this. Cognitive reserve is the brain's backup battery. It is built up over a lifetime of learning, reading, socializing, problem-solving, and staying mentally engaged. And here is the remarkable thing about it. Even if some changes are happening in the brain at the cellular level, a high cognitive reserve means those changes affect your actual thinking and memory far less. The brain has enough backup pathways to keep working well. So if you are someone who reads, who has conversations, who plays cards or does puzzles, who is curious about the world, you are building and preserving that reserve every single day. And that is not a small thing, that is a profoundly protective thing. Now this is one where I need you to be honest with yourself, not compared to when you were 40, compared to what a healthy, functioning 70-something body should actually feel like. I am not asking whether you have the energy of a 35-year-old. That is not the goal, and honestly, that comparison is not fair to you or your body. What I am asking is, when you wake up in the morning, is there enough there? Enough to get going? Enough to do the things that matter to you: a walk, cooking a meal, spending time with family, a hobby you love, an errand you need to run. Because chronic, pervasive fatigue, the kind that keeps you in the chair or in the bed for most of the day, the kind that makes even small tasks feel like enormous efforts, the kind that has been building steadily for months or years, that is a different story. That is a sign that something upstream needs attention. But if you wake up and your energy is reasonable, if you feel functional, if some days you feel genuinely good, if you are not spending your afternoons completely collapsed, that matters. That is a sign that your mitochondria, the tiny energy factories inside every cell in your body, are still doing their job. It is a sign that your sleep is doing some of its repair work. It is a sign that your thyroid, your adrenal function, your blood sugar, and your circulation are operating within a range that supports daily life. Here is something I tell my patients all the time. Energy after 70 is not just about rest. It is about cellular efficiency. It is about how well your body converts the food you eat and the oxygen you breathe into actual usable fuel. When that system is working, you feel it. Not in a dramatic, jumping out of bed way, but in a quiet, steady, I can do this kind of way. If you have that even on most days, that is a real sign of healthy aging. Let me tell you about Robert. He came to see me at 77, retired engineer, sharp as a tack mentally, but he had been noticing something that bothered him. He was having trouble opening jars, trouble carrying groceries from the car. His legs felt heavy on the stairs. He was embarrassed about it, actually. He thought maybe it was just something he had to accept. What Robert was experiencing is called sarcopenia, and it is one of the most underappreciated health challenges facing adults over 65. Sarcopenia is the gradual loss of muscle mass and strength that comes with aging. It starts in most people around their late 40s or early 50s, and by the time someone reaches their 70s and 80 seconds, if nothing has been done to slow it down, it can become severe enough to affect balance, mobility, energy, and even metabolism. Here is the part that most people never hear. Muscle is not just for lifting things. Muscle is your body's largest metabolic organ. It plays a critical role in regulating blood sugar. It supports your immune system. It protects your joints. It keeps your posture upright. And when you lose too much of it, the consequences show up everywhere in your blood sugar control, your energy levels, your risk of falling, your recovery time when you get sick, and your ability to live independently. So the sign I am looking for here is this. Can you still do things with your body? Can you get up from a chair without using your arms to push yourself up? Can you carry a bag of groceries? Can you open a jar? Can you climb stairs without stopping halfway up to rest? Grip strength in particular, the strength in your hands, has been studied extensively as a health indicator in older adults. Researchers at the University of Michigan found that grip strength in middle and older age predicts future disability, hospitalization, and even cognitive decline. Your grip is a window into what your whole body muscle system is doing. Now, and this is important, Robert did not simply accept what was happening. He started a simple resistance exercise program, nothing extreme, nothing that required a gym membership or a personal trainer. Within 4 months, he was carrying his groceries, climbing his stairs, and opening his own jars again. His blood sugar improved. His energy improved. He came back and told me it felt like waking up inside a body he recognized again. Muscle responds even after 70. Even after 75, even after 80. The body does not lose the ability to build and maintain muscle, it just needs the right signals. And if you still have reasonable strength right now, that is a sign that your body is holding on to something valuable. This one is more complicated than it sounds, and I want to take a moment here because I think sleep is one of the most misunderstood topics in senior health. Here is what the mainstream conversation usually sounds like. Oh, older people just sleep less, that is normal. And then the conversation moves on. But I want to push back on that, because while it is true that sleep architecture changes as we age, you spend less time in deep sleep, you wake more easily, you may shift toward earlier bedtimes, the need for quality sleep does not diminish. If anything, it becomes more critical. Why? Because sleep is when the brain does its maintenance work. There is a system in the brain called the glymphatic system, and it is essentially your brain's overnight cleaning crew. While you sleep, especially during deep sleep, this system flushes out waste products that accumulate in the brain during the day, including a protein called amyloid beta, which is the same protein that builds up in the brains of people with Alzheimer's disease. This is not a metaphor, this is a biological fact. And it means that the quality of your sleep is directly connected to the long-term health of your brain. Sleep also matters for muscle repair, immune function, blood sugar regulation, and emotional resilience. A night of poor sleep raises cortisol, your stress hormone, and cortisol, when chronically elevated, accelerates nearly every major dimension of aging. It breaks down muscle. It worsens insulin resistance. It drives inflammation. So the sign I am looking for here is not perfection. You do not need 8 uninterrupted hours. You do not need to fall asleep the moment your head hits the pillow. What I am looking for is this. Do you wake up most mornings feeling like sleep did something for you? Do you feel restored at least most days? Are you able to function through your day without feeling foggy or depleted from the moment you get out of bed? If you are sleeping somewhere between 6 and 8 hours, waking once or twice at most, and feeling reasonably rested, you are ahead of a very large portion of adults your age. And that regenerative sleep is doing things for your brain and your body that you cannot get from any supplement or medication. Now, this is one where I need you to think about a very specific type of experience. Not whether you have been diagnosed with any heart or lung condition, but what happens when you ask your body to actually work. Here is the question. When you climb a flight of stairs, do you get to the top feeling winded, really winded, heart pounding, needing to sit down, needing 2 or 3 minutes to recover? Or do you get to the top, take a few breaths, and carry on. When you walk briskly across a parking lot or up a mild hill, does your breathing adapt and recover within 30 or 60 seconds? Or does it feel like your chest is tightening and your heart is racing in a way that frightens you? I am not asking you to run. I am asking about your body's capacity to respond to normal physical demand and then recover from it. This is what exercise scientists and cardiologists call cardiovascular reserve, the gap between what your heart and lungs are doing at rest and what they are capable of doing under effort. And that reserve is one of the most telling indicators of biological age that we have in medicine. In fact, one of the strongest predictors of longevity in adults over 70 is something called VO2 max, a measure of how efficiently your body uses oxygen during physical effort. You do not need to get this tested in a lab, you can feel it. If you can climb a flight of stairs, carry on a conversation while walking, and recover quickly after mild exertion, your cardiovascular system is functioning in a way that strongly supports independence and longevity. What degrades this capacity? Prolonged sitting, chronic inactivity, poor sleep, smoking history, severe metabolic disease, and what protects it? Movement. Specifically, regular aerobic activity, even moderate aerobic activity. A 30-minute walk done 4 or 5 times a week has been shown in multiple studies to measurably improve cardiovascular capacity in adults in their 70s and 80 seconds.